Well, I'd known Kurt and Jason from my time at Inter Miami, so just having that pre-existing relationship obviously helped with the initial contact and the initial connection. And then having a series of calls with Pablo and kind of getting an idea of how he is as a coach and how he is as a leader, and then listening to him and his ideas on how he wanted to build his staff, and then the responsibility and the autonomy that he gives his assistant coaches to really be hands-on throughout the week was really attractive. Obviously, it's a club that has continuously done well and been consistent and been a successful team. Everything I'd heard from speaking to people that had either worked or played or had contacts here was always super positive. And then the final piece was the area. I've got a young family, and everybody again that I spoke to about the community here was really positive, and it felt a really good fit, and it's been a really enjoyable year and a half so far. So I played in England for about 12 years. I was at clubs through all 4 professional leagues, so was at clubs in the Premier League, the Championship, League One and League Two. And 2012 I got an offer to come out to the States and play for Orlando City, and Orlando was kind of just in its infancy, had big plans to obviously get into the MLS and build a new stadium, and it was a really attractive project to join. I honestly didn't think I would still be in the States now. I thought it might be one of these things where I go and enjoy the last maybe 2 or 3 years of my playing career and go back to England and start coaching, but immediately joining the club, it was a real good family club. I built some really good relationships. My wife settled in incredibly quickly. Both our 2 children were born there, and then I was fortunate because it was a young club and they knew I wanted to start coaching. The opportunities to transition from player to coach became smooth and seamless, and I was fortunate to be given an opportunity to start my coaching career, and then from there I moved obviously into St. Louis for 2 years, as you know. Had a really enjoyable 2 years there. Left St. Louis to join Inter Miami in its expansion year, and was again one of those opportunities that I felt would be crazy to turn down with the ownership group and the plans and everything they had in place there. So I had 2 good years there. Joined Miami FC for a year and a half, and then obviously the opportunity to join Salt Lake at the beginning of the 2024 season arose, and here I am. So yeah, it's been a long journey, lots of different experiences, and as I stand here, I'm really enjoying the role in the club. Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. I think as a player, I was super conscientious, really determined to get the most out of what I had. I didn't have an awful lot of natural ability, but what I would say is I kind of made up for that with my work ethic and attitude, and I think I've kind of taken that into coaching now, and I've always looked at the game from an analytical standpoint, and always been quite a deep thinker about the game, and always I've tried to have this growth mindset, whether it's player or now, probably more so now as a coach, kind of looking here, there and everywhere for the 0.5, 1% marginal gains, as they say, and because this is a game that's ever evolving, it's really important, I think, as coaches, we have to keep our finger on the pulse with modern trends and what is going to allow you to get those marginal gains, which, as we know, can be the difference between winning and losing. We found that out this year with RSL, the margins of error are incredibly thin, and I think as coaches we're always looking at those small margins and how we can cover all those bases throughout the course of a training week, whether it's the work that's done off the field, whether it's the work that's done in the video room, to try and put the players in the best position possible to perform. And I think that's something that I've always had, and I've probably continued to develop that as I've got older. Yeah, that's something I'm a big believer in. I don't think you really find out about people until they go through difficult times, and obviously it's pretty clear and everyone's well aware we're not in a fantastic run right now results-wise. However, when I look at the group every day and what they put into training, their physical output, their levels of concentration, the ability that we have in the group, it's really, really high. And I would be concerned if I saw some signs of players maybe kind of starting to lose belief a little bit in themselves and in what we're trying to do. And I've not seen 1 ounce of that, which I think is a real positive. I think the guys have have conducted themselves incredibly well on the training field, and I think especially with this kind of little bit of a longer stretch where we haven't played, you can see everybody's like super hungry and chomping at the bit to get out and play again at the weekend against DC. So what we're seeing throughout the week has been super positive. Now the challenge is how can we translate that into a good performance that's going to obviously give us the chance of getting 3 points. There's discussion certainly as we get towards the end of the week. Once we've got an idea what the starting lineup's going to be, certain discussions start to take place about subs. In what scenarios are certain players going to be able to help us? Whether we're winning, are we losing, are we drawing? What if we get an injury to a certain player? What are we going to do? Especially when we've had players that are coming back from injury. Maybe we can't, or we know we're not going to be able to push them the full 90 minutes. So they're probably going to be capped at maybe 45 or 60. So we have to be proactive with that. And then ultimately, once the game starts, there's always going to be certain nuances and certain tweaks tactically that maybe the opponent's doing that maybe is a little bit different to what we planned, and maybe they're causing us a certain problem, or we feel like if we made a substitute in a certain area of the field, we'll be able to exploit a weakness. So to answer your question, it starts, I would say, throughout the week, and then as we obviously sit there as coaches and we watch the first half, then we obviously start to build an idea of what is our first sub going to be like, what do we need to do to give us the best chance, and then ultimately it's us making suggestions, and then as a group of staff, obviously led by Pablo, then obviously there's a collective decision made, and then you hope that it kind of has the desired outcome. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I wouldn't say that I've dived too far into the data. I mean, the book that you're talking about, the author of that, Sammy Lander, I had a Zoom call with him, I want to say probably a year and a half ago. Because I'd heard about this work he was doing regarding substitutions and kind of picked his brain on some interesting areas that he's covering. He sent me a copy of the book. I haven't actually read it yet. It's there, and I need to get into it. But from a data standpoint, no. I mean, I think the only thing I would say is in the modern day game now with the 5 sub rule, that you're changing half of your outfield team, which is quite big. Now, again, there's certain teams that will always utilize all 5 subs. There's certain teams that will never do that because they want some continuity and consistency with the guys that are on the field. It's very different team to team, league to league, and obviously a lot dependent on how the game's going. I mean, we can go really far into the weeds and talk about how it affects set pieces as well, because you kind of prepare how your restarts are going to look, but then all of a sudden when you're changing half of your outfield team, and you only have a certain amount of time to get certain messages into them before they go on, that's where it can get a little bit tricky as well. And at the end of the day, like the teams that are blessed to have like dynamic, attacking, talented players on the bench to come on fresh, that's a huge bonus, especially now as we're coming into the summer months as well, when you start to look at the heat and those sort of weather conditions where defenders naturally are going to be tired. I think teams that have the ability to make those dynamic changes on the attacking line, it's obviously going to be incredibly advantageous. So these are all things that we talk about, and yeah, again, it's something, to be completely honest, it's still an area that I think we can grow and get better, but I would say that about everything, because I think that's how we have to be as coaches if we want to continue to improve. Yeah, well, it's a completely different role. So I think what we've tried to do as a staff, especially with the younger players, and I think the examples that you've just given with Gozo and Aiden Hezekani, again, as young players, to throw them right in from the start, maybe sometimes we wouldn't be putting them in a position to succeed. So I think for us, it's a case, it's twofold. It's giving them the opportunity to feel the difference in speed, the difference in physicality. Tactically, they have to be super switched on and dialed in, with the greatest respect to the Monarchs, but maybe a little bit more than what they would do at first team level. So I think for us, it's making sure that we put them in the position where there's a natural progression, where they're able to get, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 minutes to feel it. Then it's a case of, okay, well, let's assess where they are. In Gozo's case, he obviously did incredibly well. So now it's like, well, he deserves an opportunity, irrespective of his age. He shown he can do it at the Monarchs. He's done it at youth national team level. He's done it coming off the bench. Now it's his opportunity to start. And he's obviously taken that opportunity with both hands and done great. And now we look at Aiden, who obviously came on against Galaxy. Hopefully, again, we see him at the weekend at DC, and if he continues to do well and flourish, then maybe there's going to be an opportunity for him to start a game in the near future as well. And I think, again, what we don't want to do is throw a young player in and maybe he's not ready, and then all of a sudden he ends up having to take 3 or 4 steps back because mentally now he's lost some confidence. So there's a bunch of different things, and I think especially the attacking players, it's naturally they're going to be given more opportunities to come off the bench. Defensive players, it's going to be a little bit trickier for them to get the same minutes progression, and maybe you have to attack those scenarios a little bit differently and throw them in from the start. It's interesting because that's something that we as a group of staff and players have spoken about this week. I think we have 17 games left, 10 of them at home. So that's been something we've been super intentional about communicating this week, is the importance of making it a fortress. I'm a massive believer in the start of games. I think the mentality and the approach at the start of games at home, irrespective of who you're playing, has to be super positive, has to be super aggressive. And I think what that does is it enables to build momentum, and then if you're able to sustain that momentum and really make the away team feel under pressure and uncomfortable, then that's when obviously you can get yourself in a situation where you're able to be dominant in games. And I think that's something that we can continue to do a better job of over the course of these next 10 home games that hopefully get us to where we want to get to and finish the season well. I support Manchester United. Unfortunately for me, as a kid they were by far and away the best team in England, and obviously in previous years not so good. I'm a US citizen now, so obviously I was born and raised in the UK, and been in the States now 12, 13 years, and we got our citizenship a year or 2 years ago. So yeah, we're now dual citizens, my wife and I, and now our 2 kids were born here. So yeah, we're all we're fully Americaned up, you could say.